come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen fan film reviews, fan project reviews. I need a better name for it, because Geeky Gentlemen fan reviews doesn't work. Anyway, today we're here talking about a doozy. No what? No, it doesn't work? Is there a delay?
No, it's all good, it's all good.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, so today we're here talking about a doozy of a thing. We're talking about Moscow X's What If Raditz Turned Good? The entire thing. We're reviewing the entire playlist from the very first episode to the most recent one posted just a week or so ago as a recording that finalizes the GT era of the timeline, and he's done everything from when Raditz shows up in Z all the way through GT. He's done the movies, he's done all of Super. Yeah, so it's a whole thing, man.
Yeah, it's a saga, and I think it's kind of close to home thing to review for us, because it is very much influential in not necessarily like a direct lineage, but kind of like that pipeline of Masako doing this leads to What Ifs in that format, leads to Smokestick, leads to me, leads to DBDC, and to the point where now Masako is in DBDC as Gohan in a major role. Like, there is a connection between What If Raditz Turned Good and just the idea of What If on YouTube, where entire people are making jobs and livings and changing their lives because of it. To the point where if you do a Raditz thing, everyone will ask, is he gonna turn good? Like, it has transcended the page in a way rare. There's been a couple of Dragon Ball fan things that have done that, but this is definitely one of the most recent examples.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's interesting to talk about, because obviously Moscow is, someone that we work with now, so but the thing I find impressive about him is he's pretty self-aware, and he's from my interactions with him and stuff, he seems pretty open to critique and stuff. His latest What If Goku Married Bulma received a lot of flashback, and he kind of, whether or not he needed to, he's accepted the criticism and decided to go a different direction and with it eventually. So, it's one of those things where we're not going to be dicks, but we're definitely not going to pull punches when talking about this, because, he's a big boy, and I think one thing that's always missing in fan communities, and one of the reasons I love doing these, is there's a very lack of thoughtful, genuine feedback for these fan projects. So I hope, anything positive or negative we have to say, I just hope it's taken in the right light, of course, and I trust that he will. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about with this is, man, it's you're right, it is crazy to look at how he's certainly not the first person in the world to do What If with Dragon Ball. As you've mentioned in the past, the video games are probably the source of why it's such a foundational thing in the community. But yeah, there's no denying he kind of sets the mold and shows how it's a viable thing to do and get views on YouTube, for sure. How had you watched all this before? Had you just tuned in and out of it? What was your experience with this?
I've watched, I remember I watched all the way up to Thematic for the first time, and this was well after it had already come out. I didn't watch it as it was coming out, kind of thing. Then after that, I just fell off it and didn't keep up with it. And then I watched some bits of R&R. I didn't even finish that, kind of thing. And we can go into kind of like formatting things, but not being everyone's taste and stuff. But I had not watched the whole thing all the way to from start to finish until doing this review. And I can understand why at the same time, but I also just want to give her credit for the hardest thing with fan projects. And we've talked about this before, especially like ongoing Dragon Ball series, is just getting them finished. So the fact this way, only originally, because we talk about this in episode 1, is he's like, episode 1 is a one-shot. Like, it has a beginning, middle, and end, and has a complete character arc for Raditz. That on its own is quite good. Like, that's something that you could fit in the original story, doesn't change anything that happens later, but just gives Raditz a larger role, but still a small arc specific. He's still only a Saiyan saga character. But then from part 2 onwards, they're like, alright, we're covering everything. Original manga, go. Movies, go. Super, go. GT, go. And he did it all. So I just want to give a round of applause for that, because seriously, that is a feat of writing writing one thing. And yes, we have to go off those. Is it still like lagging on your thing? Because there has been a little bit of cutouts on my side.
Yeah, it is cutting in and out a little bit on your side and mine, I guess. I guess we'll just go with it. I don't really know what else to do.
Okay. I'll close a couple things, see if that helps the connection or anything. But outside of that, the general just commitment to making it work as a long thing and writing it multiple times a week along with his other series. And yes, he has a co-writer, Haverock, who I do want to give credit here as well, because this isn't just a sole writing adventure. I know you don't want to get just like, oh, let's talk about Dragon Ball DC. I only mentioned Geek for fun. So like, I do want to mention Haverock here as well, who seems like a very smart.
Dang it.
And the scope of the thing and the amount of things that have been covered, I think is really commendable.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned, he goes through all of it, because like he plans to end it like 2 or 3 times, because he originally it is just the one part, and then it kind of goes, and then it's like, all right, ending it at the Buu Saga, and people are like, no, you got to do Super. He's like, all right, fine, we'll do Super, and then it ends for us. Like, all right, now end of Z. All right, now GT. Like, it just keeps happening. It's really, really amusing. And so it's, yeah, you're right. It's definitely commendable to kind of see the whole thing out. And of course, Moscow has talked about that their writing process isn't like planned out in advance. They attempt to write it like Toriyama, with just going into it and changing as they go, and coming up with the ideas when they're ready to write the next part, as opposed to knowing what they're going to do in advance. And that is all the more impressive. That all being said, I do think that there are, like, I don't know if I'd call them glaring issues, but like recurring things that I notice in this that do kind of stand out to me as like the weaker point of it all. I think first and foremost, the thing that's like kind of got to be acknowledged, and I think the thing that is pointed out about this series, or just this premise in general when it's done by other people too, is as the series goes on, and I'm got multiple thoughts on this. As the series goes on, it stops being so much what if Raditz was like an independent character in Dragon Ball, but more just like, okay, what if Raditz we just gave all Vegeta's stuff to Raditz, you know? That was the thing that like I consistently started to notice, and, you know, full disclosure, I'm a Vegeta fan, so I'm gonna pick up on that. And it's not that it doesn't work. There are aspects of it that it's clearly at least considered and thought about. But, like, as the series goes on, Raditz gets defused with Goku. Raditz helps defeat Frieza. Raditz helps... Raditz kills Frieza in Resurrection F. Ranch becomes Baby in GT. Like, all the stuff that would be Vegeta in the original series gets transferred to Raditz and Ranch. And I start to, like, I wouldn't have a problem with that if it happened a few times. It was the consistency of it that I noticed that started to kind of become, I think, the biggest issue to me throughout this.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of that ties into, I think, my larger issue with some things. And again, it's not necessarily an issue, it's just, is a choice that Moscow has done here that I think has, as a result of him kind of setting the model and the format, had a trickle-down effect to influencing how the majority of What If story. I want to be very careful how I phrase this because I don't want it to sound like a critique. It's just a choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is, okay, so why is Raditz in these positions? Why is Raditz the person who fuses with Goku in the Buu saga? Why is Ranch the one who has these like second coming, like kind of Trunks-esque roles to the point of she comes to the future and everything? There's like a future Ranch series and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That
retcons
because the original and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that's because Raditz in this story has become the secondary protagonist. Like he's become the co-star, which is traditionally from Namek onwards is Vegeta's role. Even when Gohan's the protagonist, Vegeta's still the co-star in the in that early Buu saga point. That Toriyama keeps that consistent all the way to Super. Less so in GT, but then literally as soon as we get back on Earth in GT, we go back to Geeky get Vegeta. So the reason Raditz has to take is the co-star because we want Raditz is in the title. He should be our protagonist. If not, like he should have a lot of screen time. All right. So then that means you've got to put him in positions where he'll have shine, where he'll have impact. And the way Dragon Ball's story is formatted, unless you really go off the beaten path, there are kind of inevitable things that have to happen. Mm-hmm. And inevitable fights and power-ups and stuff that have to happen. And unless you're going to give it to both people, you do kind of have to pick and choose at that point. So I feel like that Vegeta having his stuff taken away from him and given to Raditz, I think is an inherent issue you as a writer have to deal with when you're choosing to adapt Dragon Ball. Not exactly, because there are distinct changes that are made in this, but pretty closely.
Mm-hmm. And I will
because
say,
there's just no.
I will say that like, it's not
someone has to have things swapped out.
Mm-hmm. I will say it's not done in a bad way. I think it's clever. It's not that like, you know, Raditz becomes Majin Vegeta. Like they pick and choose the right ones that I think are fair. And I think it is a solid choice and a logical decision that if you were to take away some of Vegeta's key moments of development, that he would become more of a hard ass, more of a bother. And so to see Vegeta kind of develop into a consistent threat for Raditz, I think is an interesting direction and an inherently better decision. Personally, as a Vegeta fan, I don't necessarily buy that Vegeta's like hate boner would transfer so hard to Raditz the way it does in this. I think it would still pretty much be on Goku. I think he would certainly be aggravated toward Raditz and certainly have problems with him, but I don't know if it would just like create the rivalry shift that we see in this is one of the things that I kind of, again, just as the Vegeta fanboy, I like saw that part. I was like, I guess I could see it, but I don't know if I buy it to that extent, you know?
It would be, you might want to imagine that, at least in my head, it would be something to more permanent version of when Vegeta interacts with where, yeah, Vegeta sees them as rivals too, just like Goku does, but he's not focused on them in the same way. Like, we see like when Goku introduces a rival character and Vegeta's around, Vegeta normally wants a piece of that action too, but he's not as obsessed with it as Goku is. So Raditz would just be like, if a figure like that was part of the main cast. Kind of like how Piccolo is in the Android saga, where Vegeta's not exactly happy that Piccolo got so strong. He wants to fight Piccolo, but it's not the same extent as Goku.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing I noticed. So, like, the Vegeta aspects that are taken and used here was just I think the thing for me that became the most glaring. And I think that kind of ties into my other major criticism of the series as I watched this, which was the introductions to each episode and just kind of like little moments throughout. And so, like, the caveat before I get into this is these aren't really meant to be watched all together. You certainly can watch through the whole playlist. It does function, it does serve the story. But, like, each episode opening with, like, Moscow, you know, doing a recap of the previous and with him giving some, like, out of narrative thoughts on the reasoning and decision making and stuff, does kind of break focus a little bit, but it's like it works fine if you were watching it as it was coming out. But the critique or the point that kept being brought up, that kept being mentioned episode after episode, that did start to grind a little bit for me, and to a certain extent even, like, I think, not invalidate, it did make me more aware of the Vegeta criticism I brought up earlier. And that is that he's consistently saying Raditz is a character with so much potential, or Raditz was a character with wasted potential, or thrown away way too early. Like, these points that I think mostly you'd get, like, from the audience first, and then kind of would get transferred up. And it's like, I guess I can kind of see that if so much of it wasn't being, you know, taking the potential away from other characters, as it were. That was just I think the biggest thing is like that general kind of like, oh, Raditz had so much potential, but I guess that argument seems invalidated to me when so much of that potential is coming from taking things from other characters. And this, like, kind of goes a little bit farther too, in particular about, like, just little moments here and there where it'd be like a criticism of the series that felt more like your typical things you'd hear from fans, like the Goku's bad dad or whatever kind of moments. Like, I remember one was in the GT section where he's like, oh, trust me, Pan won't be as annoying in this one. And that's because of Raja's influence. I'm like, okay. Just like moments like that just kind of took me out for a second and began to make me think a little more critically about the series. That being said, I did still enjoy it. I did still like it, but I think those, like, almost like jabs at the original made me appreciate it less, if that makes sense.
No, I think that's a really interesting point, right? Because inherently, when we're writing basically what we're just changing the if this was a, like, official, like, book or something that Masako was, like, making a TV series out, it would be a change from the book that now Raditz has all of Vegeta's stuff and, like, has them all proud of. Like, that's like a funny way to look at it, but that's what it would be if we're talking this just, like, in terms of outside of our insular YouTube community. And so when you're making an adaptation, there is a balance to be had, I feel, between reverence for the source material, but also not being slaves to it. At the same time, I do think you have, at least in terms of the really great adaptations, you are using someone else's spirit, work, energy, whatever, to tell your story. You're taking nothing, but it's not coming directly from just you. And I think as a result, there is a responsibility to look at each of these things and be like, oh, I disagree with this choice. But now I am a writer. I need to look at the series and put myself in their shoes. Why did they make that choice? Did this frustrate me? Was this meant to frustrate me? was this meant to get me here? Was this character wasted, or was this character used in a purpose that I would have liked to see in them more, but isn't necessary, kind of thing? And those choices don't have to be correct, because it's all subjective, right? It's all, you'll never know the answers, and I doubt Toriyama even knows the answers at this point. But like, those are the thoughts you have to have. And I want to give credit to Masako, because I think out of a lot of Dragon Ball fan writers, he understands the series way more, because he's lived it, right? Like, he is the voice of Goku. He's worked with talented people. He is a very talented writer. He's got people co-writing him and checking things. He's looking at the comments. His job is Dragon Ball. It makes it part of his life so he can understand it. But there is kind of a hesitancy to separate yourself from your own biases of what you prefer versus what serves the story. And I feel like that's hard for any writer. Like, we suffer with that, everyone suffers with that. But I do think that you're right to bring that up in critique, where if you're specifically saying that to the audience before you start an episode, or even in the episode, it makes that jump out, right? It would be like watching a movie, and then the director just comes on and says, "Oh yeah, I thought the Trunks were stupid, so that's why I got rid of them. Anyway, here's the movie, continue." Like, it brings it to your attention that you might not have noticed otherwise.
And that was the thing, is like, it's not necessarily a problem, because I certainly agree with him, of course, on some of the critiques and issues in the story. Like Pan, I think, is an interesting example, because I don't necessarily think Pan's annoying, but I think Pan is, in the original, written to be a damsel and little else, you know? So she is a character who I think you could do more with, but I don't know if, like, just calling her out as annoying, calling her out as a problem is the right move in story. And I think you'd be better served with doing something like, instead of just telling us, oh yeah, Ranch's connection with Pan makes her less annoying, I'd prefer to see that a little bit more, to show moments like that. Like, he's no stranger to, and I think bravely so, he's no stranger to inserting moments of dialogue, even if, even though it's always just his performances, even if his dialogue, his voice isn't the perfect thing for that. So doing that thing with like two female characters might seem like it would take you out a little bit more, but I've seen him do stuff like it before, and it does sell. It does function. As funny as it is, What If Raditz Turned Good is certainly his most popular series on the channel. It's not the one I like the most. I've watched through a number of these. I'd watched more of this than I realized, because like I kept trying to watch episodes of the playlist, and I'd get to like, oh, it says I'd already watched this one sometime in the past. I don't remember. But like, it was funny because like, I watched this. I watched his What If Cell Turned Good, which I think is their most brilliant premise, where I never would have thought of it in a million years, and I really do love it. And I've just watched other ones. The What If Yune Went to Earth with Goku is also a pretty good one. Where he gets like expressly emotional and really does do great acting, playing or trying to voice a female character just on screen, being Moscow X. It's quite an impressive feat. So like I would just say that moments like that, instead of just saying as the persona that Pan is annoying in the original and here she's less so, I think is a weaker move than just getting to show that development with Ranch. Who, I will say, I do quite like Ranch as a character, and all things considered, my criticisms of the robbing of Vegeta. First, he can't have a W, now he can't even have development.
As it should be.
Oh, ow. No, just like despite my criticisms of that, the thing I want to kind of get to a little bit and talk about is when it does, like, when you kind of ignore the how we got there, when you get to like watching the episodes of R&R, it is immediately enjoyable to have like a family member for Goku there. Immediately I enjoy that. Like the episodes of R&R, because I even rewatched those for this. I immediately am in there for it, and the joy of it, the fun of it, just becomes apparent, despite what we had to do to get there. You know, I actually do quite like Ranch as a character. I think he's very smart and very aware with what he'll let her do, giving her the more cautious character as the father, making her the more strategist, smarter member of the kids because she's just a little bit older, I think is a really smart move, and I think it works really well. And he doesn't go overboard with what he'll like allow her to do, but he also isn't too shy of giving her cool moments to shine. So like I do like that she gets to, you know, again, it's giving her a Vegeta moment, but it does work. I do like giving her the walking tournament or Universe 6 thing, and I do like that she gets to have some shine when she's in the Tournament of Power, but she's not groundbreaking in the tournament. She's there and she's helpful, and she has about the same level of contribution, I guess, as the humans did, like Tien, who she replaced. I thought that was a pretty good move.
No, she replaces Frieza.
No, she replaces Tien. Raditz replaces Frieza.
Was it?
Yeah, Frieza's not in the Tournament of Power in this version.
No, I know Frieza's not in it, but that's because they reject Goku's idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was Ranch that replaces her, that replaces Frieza.
No, it's Raditz. Because you don't
Wouldn't
have...
Raditz be instant pick?
Initially he didn't
I thought
want
Raditz
to do
took
it.
Vegeta's spot.
No, Vegeta's in it.
No, I know, I'm just trolling you there.
Yeah, I know. Initially, he doesn't want to do it in the same way that everyone else was, like, annoyed with Goku in that arc, which is still hilarious to me. It's like, guys, okay, I get you're pissed. The universe is literally on the line. Maybe not right now, but, like, the way it works is they were thinking of another person, and they end up getting Raditz. Boo isn't there, and Frieza isn't there, because Boo's not in the continuity either anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, Raditz ends up taking what would have been Frieza's spot, and Ranch takes Tien's.
Okay. Alright, yeah, whatever. Let's go with that. I swear, anyway, it's fine. There's a lot of what ifs in this short period of time, so I must just be blanking. It's all good. But yeah, like the ideas like that I think is good for when you're introducing an original character. Being able to do that well and properly, I think has a strength to it, and she's clearly very popular because she's got Xenoverse mods of her and tons of fan art. So that's a really cool thing to see, and I think that idea of almost another kind of fan wish fulfillment kind of thing that happened in this, that has existed prior to this. I don't know why. Purely because I think people think the two are attractive together, which again is as valid reason as any for a show. You don't need any real reason. But the pairing of Raditz and Launch was definitely skyrocketed thanks to this. Even though it had already prior been a very popular kind of niche ship. And again, I think stuff like that is interesting to do, and I think the dynamic he finds for the pair works and is different enough from Goku and Chi-Chi and Vegeta and Bulma that feels like a uniquely Raditz development, which I do like to your earlier point. I wish there was a little bit more of just things that Raditz himself could have gone to. Like the thing for me that sticks out the most with Raditz, and what I would have liked to see as more of a through line, although I understand that if you're in an action series and you can't really do it, it's hard to write this. I think Krillin is a good example of how you can keep this consistent. Is I would like the idea that when Moscow in those early videos gets to the core of Raditz's character, is what makes him different than every other Saiyan, is that he is a coward. And I feel like that could have stuck around a little bit more permanently to some extent. And I feel like after a while, that aspect of Raditz kind of disappears. And I understand that's like a positive development, but I think it makes him a little less unique, you know? Because Vegeta's got the pride. Like Vegeta is the elite. Vegeta is the thing. Goku is the kind of low class person who rised up and the kind of pure Saiyan. And Raditz, to a point, kind of just becomes almost like a Bardock type figure, right? Like his father, where he's the stock Saiyan, where he is a Saiyan that isn't the extremes of Goku and Vegeta. He's what the middle road response would be, and that works. I do kind of wonder what would have been if we'd kept Raditz on that almost Starscream type path, you know? But again, that's less a critique and more just so an interesting thought experiment that's in my mind when he brought it up, because I definitely the most cowardly Saiyan we've ever seen, and I do think that's an interesting aspect of him when you're going into like wasted potential. Is well, yeah, that could be something that could be interesting to see played out.
Oh, for sure. I don't know. I think it works as is. I do think the like point you're making about him being more cowardly or whatever, I think that's just ultimately addressed really early on in the like Vegeta fight, basically, because you kind of would need to overcome that cowardice in the Saiyan saga when you logically think it through. But you're right, he probably could. I think the cowardly nature kind of goes throughout and just becomes more of a cautious, more thoughtful figure, which does work. And I think it's interesting because typically you'd kind of pick Piccolo as the guy that's a member of the team and more in that kind of mold. And so it is interesting that like Piccolo and Raditz begin to develop kind of a kinship throughout the series as it goes on. So it does. You're not wrong that the cowardliness is kind of left behind, but I do think it is growth. I just think it's growth that happens very early on, kind of necessarily. And I don't know if like you could extend that out. You'd have to do what they don't do and plan that out a lot further in advance, though.
Right, and that I think is a good segue to that point of I feel like overall the thing that I don't think is possible just because of how Masiko's channel is structured and what his viewers expect of his like schedule to keep pumping out these videos kind of thing, is I would have liked to see a version of this almost like R&R, but not necessarily that level of production with like completely storyboarded and just entirely cast produced, because boy howdy man, I know how long that takes. Trust me about that, I'm not expecting that one, but I would have liked to see what if Raditz turned good with a little bit more production value behind it. And what I mean by that is in terms of we get those little snippets that they did a little while ago, and I don't think is being continued anymore because it hasn't been for years. But there's like an animation where you see Raditz against Margin Vegeta. And no, I'm not going to be that commenter who's like, you should just get someone to animate this, you should just get someone to make it, because no, that's not how that works. But I feel like there is a level of ways to make stuff like that happen, even if, because again, the original thumbnails are all original art pieces, done by Malik DBNA mostly, but also some other artists he brings on for the thumbnails, and they all look great, and they're all fantastic that he manages to get those out, everything, because those aren't cheap. But maybe stuff like that in episodes, like just one-off pieces of just, rather than just a thumbnail with like a flat PNG with no background, like a shot, right? Or like a manga panel, right? Or doesn't have to be every episode, but like for a big moment, or bring in another actor just for one specific line of dialogue scene, like just a scene that you just get as written and stuff. Stuff like that, just pinkled here and there, just I think really does a lot to help immersion and to help make you feel the characters. And Masiko's such a great actor that he can do that already on his own But if I was trying to think of just like improvements in a hypothetical world, in an ideal world where Masako didn't have to pump these out like every week and he could just only focus on one thing at a time kind of thing and still have the same level of income and some level of money, if YouTube wasn't annoying, I would have liked to see what that would have been, because with any writer really, and especially people this talented, the more time and freedom you give them, you normally do get better results.
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I agree. Like, it would be nice to see some of that, and like, I think your template for that is his End of Z episode. I think that's basically what that one was, because he's got like art going on throughout it and stuff, and so that would be really, really impressive to see. I do think R&R is really great. I'm a little sad that it's been like 9 months or something since the last episode's come out, so I kind of want to I just really want to see more of that, and I know he's working on it, but it's just, dang. Like, it's funny, because R&R was initially pitched as, like, purely an audio drama with maybe 1 or 2 pieces of art, and then everyone got really excited, and the production value just skyrocketed, which made the time between episodes go up, I'm certain. So, it's R&R is something I do legitimately enjoy, and I think it's the best thing to come out of this, and deservedly so. It's really well thought out, well produced. Just a couple last little final thoughts. I really liked his ending for GT, which is saying something, because like, even the people that hate GT kind of admit that, like, okay, it's not good, but I do love that ending. Like, it's got just objectively the best Dragon Ball ending in the world. And so it's kind of hard to top, but I do really, really like the end of GT, the way he sets it up. The way of, like, the ultimate way to beat the final boss isn't through fighting, but it's through doing the one thing that the characters never have, and it's taking responsibility for their actions. I really did quite like the ending of GT, and also making Shenron, instead of just get Spiky or whatever it was, he just becomes Black Smoke Shenron when he absorbed all the Dragon Balls. I thought that was a pretty good move too. Also the lore changes that he makes for the Black Smoke Dragon Balls to incorporate it in with Super, I thought was a pretty novel and clever way to make that whole blending thing work out.
Yeah, on that point, there is a kind of interesting thing, is this not only becomes What If Raditz turned good, it also becomes a stealth What If GT was canon.
Yeah, I know, right?
There's 2 what ifs, so you get 2 for the price of 1, folks. Roll up, line up. Masako is gonna trade for you here, and you want the Shadow Dragons, but not to suck. Here you go, boys, and Raditz is here too. It's great. You get getting spoiled by this man, I say. Spoiled.
Yeah, no, it's really great stuff. Yeah, I like those. I do think the movies are probably the weakest installment in the entire thing, which, you know, at least it's consistent with the quality of the Dragon Ball movies. See, that's me doing the thing I said not to do earlier, where I'm inserting criticisms of a thing that's not really necessary to make my point, but just,
I hate to see it.
yeah, when you get to the movies in the playlist, it's kind of like, okay, I think it does hurt a little bit that he goes through like all of the movies across 2 videos. I think is probably the thing that makes that the weakest it could be. But ultimately it does kind of feel obligatory at that point, I guess.
And I feel like that's just...
Dang it.
And I'd be curious to know, and I don't think I'd ever be able to know, but like the idea of what video lengths and episode titles and stuff are chosen, or story decisions are chosen specifically knowing that this is going to be a YouTube video, and what people click on for YouTube videos, and what is easier for people, because that is a kind of common trend that I've noticed, and I think it predates Masako, but people do what ifs of like older movies as like singular or 2-part videos is quite a common thing that I've noticed. There's a couple things around that, so I wonder if that just is like that's a money maker one that you can do quick. And again, don't take that as critique. Trust me, man. I want some of that too. Like, please, I'm destitute. So no, don't worry. I'm all for that. I would just be curious to know if that is a storytelling decision primarily of just, I'm not really feeling the movie, so I'm just gonna knock them all out as one. I feel it'd be a stronger video than just dragging it on, which is entirely fair. Or if it is a movies anyway, but this is a popular idea to do all the movies in a video for a what if. So okay, let's just do that kind of thing. Like maybe it's a bit of A, a bit of B, who knows? But I always think that's interesting, like the behind the scenes rationale for the choices like that.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else we wanted to talk about with this one?
I guess, what do you feel like, just on the ultimate, because I think it's funny, like fan level of like what transformations and paths they give to Raditz here, kind of thing. Are there any ones you think that would have been, this would be cool if he got this?
I cannot forgive him for not doing Super Saiyan 3 Raditz. I cannot forgive him for not doing that. It's just like, come on. He's already got the hair for it. Just do it. Just make it go like crazy. Give me Rapunzelitz. Give me Rapunzelitz. That's what I want.
That I would pray for now.
Just like as a gag, just like to prove that he could do it, that he does it the one time and everyone makes fun of his hair, that he never does it again. It's the total Toriyama move. Give me that filler. Like, I will, if you, Moscow, if you're listening, if you make a Kickstarter for just animating that little bit for like a 2-minute or like a 1-minute gag moment, do it. I'll help contribute because I want it so badly.
There you go, the gauntlet has been thrown.
But Moscow, you should totally go Super Saiyan 3. It'd be so cool. Unsubscribe! There. I had to get one in.
You did it. I hope you're proud of it. I hope everyone enjoyed that.
You're just a coward because you're not going to do it.
No.
Yeah. A geek for
It's
fun.
between you.
Coward confirmed. What if
You're
a
just
Geek
the
for Fun
commentator
kept
behind
his
the content.
cowardice?
I'm the content creator.
What if Geek for Fun
Exactly.
kept his cowardice? There we go.
Never lose it. I needed it for Raditz to relate to me.
How about you? What form or transformation or whatever?
I think it's an interesting choice with like the merging of GT and Super, that they do the thing of having both Super Saiyan 4 and Super Saiyan Blue and like the God forms around and stuff. I think the trend of, especially once we get to like the Buu saga, I do think Toriyama was making a conscious decision to have all of his Saiyan characters have a different specialty that has continued to some extent, especially now when we've got like Ultra Ego and Ultra Instinct and stuff. But giving Gohan no Super Saiyan forms, he's just got like his ultimate state. Goku's got Super Saiyan 3. The boys have fusion. Saiyan 2, like how they end up is when you're visually watching them in a fight, they all look different. I feel like it would have been an interesting choice because he has done like fan forms before. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a Saiyan form, but like just to give Raditz something that is entirely like his path, in the same way that an Ultra Instinct is Goku or an Ultimate is Gohan or something like that. I don't know what it would be because it's up to the writer, but I feel like he's lived in Raditz's head enough where he could have done that, and I feel like that would have probably, just on a pure like,
Raditz could make Super Saiyan 3 not suck. Boom.
Yeah, maybe, there you go. But like something along that lines where it is just, I think not only would it have been an interesting story decision, and you could have made it like work and give Raditz kind of something entirely his own that was not from someone else or was not debuted by someone else. Fans would have just gone nuts for it. That you'd have seen like Xenoverse Mars and fan art and
Yeah.
people eat that shit up. So like, I don't know. That would be my only thing is, I sound like a broken record, but just like have the freedom to just do your own new thing. You don't have to do it all the time, because obviously you're using renders and your story, and you do want to see specific Dragon Ball moments, but like, just see what that would look like. You know,
Yeah.
like see what add to the mythology.
Yeah, and I think, in all fairness, giving Raditz the, like, having him be the first one to get the mastered Super Saiyan Blue from the manga is probably the closest you got to what you're talking about in the series itself, but
Right.
yeah, something more original or just unique to him that is kind of an abandoned path along the way. Like, I don't know, it could be cool if, like, there was, if he was the one that pursued the grades in a different way as opposed to trying to like merge them down to Super Saiyan 2, if he'd like gone off a different path that meant like switching between grades as a fighting style or something like that could have been interesting. Like if grade 4 is like the strength grade, then like grade 6 could be the one streamlined just for speed or something like that. Just spitballing ideas, but yeah, I see what you're coming from with that one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and go on to ratings. Alfie, you want to go ahead and go first?
Yeah. So overall, I think this is a very Dragon Ball funny, honest story that's taken place over the course of numerous years, numerous fan art, numerous things, and absolutely massive commitment to see it all done. And I doubt it will be the end of Raditz and Masako's channel. I think those two are tied together like Sherlock Holmes and Conan Doyle. Like I think Raditz is going to be with Masako almost as much as Goku is with Masako, which I doubt was intended, but that's just how these things kind of wind up. It's funny how that happens with creators sometimes. But yeah, I feel like the issues we've mentioned above and just kind of preferences for format choices and stuff mean I'm probably gonna give this a 4 out of 5. Unwasted characters.
Unwasted characters. There you go. That was a good one. That was pretty good. All right. I did like I always feel bad because I talk so much about critique, but I want people to know the things that I think they could legitimately improve on. But I did legitimately enjoy this. Like it was fun to listen to for a couple days. Funny enough, NPR's doing their pledge drive right now, so it gave me something else to listen to besides people begging for money for half an hour. So that was good. So yeah, I did quite enjoy this. I'll give it also 4 out of 5. Super Saiyan 3 Raditzes that are totally canon in my heart of hearts. Oh man, yeah, it's a good episode. Okay, so we're in. This is another mistake, because we should have been in horror month, but I forgot.
Wow, the scariest thing of all is Raditz!
Oh,
When
terrifying.
Raditz!
Terrifying, oh my god, he's so scary. He's got the thickest thighs. Oh no.
Oh, it actually does fit, Ian, because the scariest thing of all is Raditz fans. That is actually a horrifying proposition.
When Raditz. Oh man. Yeah. I'm not sure what we'll talk about next time. It'll be a horror fan film. I gotta find something though. So it'll be a surprise horror fan film next time. So should be good. Anyway, and until then, everyone, thank you so much for watching. I'm the Philosopher.
And I am the champion of the oppressed.
And we are your geeky gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.